Hello and welcome back to another video. Today here again on Forza Horizon 5 to take a look at the newly added Viper Anniversary Edition. So to win this car you simply must complete all 5 chapters of the brand new Horizon Origins story mode, which after the first one, which is a little bit tricky, they are relatively easy to complete, so it is quite easy to get hold of this car. It actually produces the same amount of power as the standard car at 640 horsepower, but is over 200 kilos lighter and has much more grip than those upgraded tyres. This thing is fantastic in the corners compared to the other one, although if you really push it you could get the back to just about kick out. Interestingly though, unlike the normal one, this one is only available in yellow with black stripes, which is a little bit of a shame, but it does have window stickers. Even more amazingly than that, which unfortunately we can't still apply to any other cars, it also has some rather unique aero options. I mean, just look at that. Why doesn't all Forza Aero look that good? It also has the most amazing diffuser I've ever seen, which I think is actually the coolest bit of aero on this, and a bit of carbon fibre bits at the edge. Also has your usual tyre options, although I don't know why you'd change them because they're rather grippy as they are. I think they're... okay, so they're semi-slicks, so you can put full slicks on, but that probably isn't what I'll be doing. You can do your usual widths and things. There's probably an engine swap, there's a V12. There's all aspiration options, and of course an all-wheel drive conversion. I think these will all be, all these other bits are going to be as normal. It's not even on sport brakes, which is interesting. And it is on race suspension, as you might expect. And all of the usual engine upgrades also seem to be available. Now usually at this point I would make my own tune and then go and do some Horizon Open, but I think to change things up a bit, maybe we should download an actually good tune this time so that we can give the Viper a proper test. So the tune applied onto the car now is in fact an AMS Carver tune that Elf recommended to me on stream when I had first unlocked this car, which unfortunately only uses the diffuser and side skirts out of that amazing aero kit and has some interesting wheels. Anyway, the tune itself is of course still S1, but brings power up to at least 1300 horsepower, which is a bit terrifying. Anyway, I joined mid-adventure for the final race of an adventure around the festival circuit containing many other Vipers, which is a bit of a theme going forward here, some of which were also anniversary editions. So it took a bit of getting used to this car. It's massively slidey, as a lot of these fast tunes that I try are, but for me, I prefer it a lot more planted. I really didn't like how it lost the back so easily on power, even being really gentle. So, where the first race started quite well and I shot past some people on the straights, I just couldn't control it consistently enough to stay ahead. So yeah, that didn't really go very well. So I moved on to a new adventure, that being the final race of that one. The first race of which was Chihuahua Circuit, which, given the handling of this car isn't its strong point, let's say, went predictably badly. Anyway, let's move on from that pretty quickly to the Estadio Circuit, which is one I do always love. Started well by putting the car into second gear early, and was hopeful, as, like I say, it is a track that I do really enjoy in this game, and seem to be relatively good at. But then I missed pretty much, I think it was even the second checkpoint. Anyway, I did recover to fourth eventually, with many other cars also missing checkpoints, which is easy to do around here, pushing the limits of this track. I did slip into third place on the final chicane there, but I felt like I bumped him a little too hard on the way out, so I conceded the position, gave him that back. Didn't feel like that was quite a fair pass, but it was unfortunate because I probably should have taken him. I did get caught behind him when he sort of spawned out of Ghost Mode after missing a checkpoint. Anyway, fourth was okay, but my fastest lap wasn't all that great either. So yeah, not going great. And finally we moved to a sprint, which I thought was hopeful given this car's fast in the straights, but tricky in the corners. It started brilliantly and was going very well, until unfortunately the tiniest little bump from another car just put the back wheel onto a curb, which made it do quite an interesting thing. So that was kind of enough of that. I then very promptly quit the adventure. There's no doubt that this tune is rapid, particularly on the straights. For me though, I'm just not skilled enough to handle the power at the moment, especially on power. It just kicks the back out too unpredictably for me. You could be like super cautious, but I felt like I was being as gentle as I could be on the throttle and it was still doing it. So generally I prefer something a lot more predictable. It had great turn in, but it was a bit too twitchy, and yeah, I didn't like the backsliding out. So yeah, I do prefer something a lot more predictable. I do think though in the right hands that tune would be amazing and faster than anything I could make. Just as a test though, to see if I could get any more myself out of my own handling tune, I went and made my own using a full aero kit but with no power options, which I knew wasn't going to be quick, but I think I'll place in races better with that because I'll be able to control it more. It now has rally tyres, not drift tyres like the other tune, which might explain a bit of the problems I was having, which interestingly still have the tyre writing on them, which I quite like. That's unusual. I think it's the only car that does that. Unfortunately, it seems you can't have full aero and keep the semi-slicks in S1 class at least, so that's kind of why I opted for those. It felt so much more predictable and planted though, almost too much and lacking in power of course. We begin again mid-adventure with the lookout circuit, and I was immediately more comfortable driving this with the handling tune. It was, however, incredibly slow on the straights. I think its top speed's about 150, but it was so good in the corners that I ended up winning that first race. Admittedly, I think we had less people racing against us in slower cars, and they weren't as challenging opposition, let's say, as in the previous lobby, so I'm not necessarily saying this tune's better. It's just, so far I'm more comfortable driving it, and I did win that first race. We then moved on to a sprint where I made up masses of places at the start, so I literally didn't have to brake for anything and could dodge, no pun intended, around the other cars. Later on I did run into some top speed problems though. Like I said, this is where I found out the top speed was 150, so I didn't have any chance catching those lead two by the time I'd worked my way through the pack. I could though do 150 pretty much for the remainder of that sprint, so I did gain on them I think because they were battling. But anyway, 2 podiums and 2 races isn't too bad going with so little power and my own tune. That was the end of that adventure, so I moved on to another one, starting with the Cathedral Circuit, which was perfect for this tune, so I did end up winning by quite a significant margin. It was fantastic around that track, really enjoyed that one. And then we moved to the Desanza Dorado Sprint, this being probably the first time in any class I think that I've been able to take that first corner completely flat, and I mean it's barely a corner, but without risking going off the bridge on the side there. I was also able to overtake a lot of people in the corners through the ghosting through them with the high-speed collision detected thing, because I was going so much faster through the corners that I could just ghost through them to gain positions, which went quite well. A couple of times I bumped them instead, but yeah, that was absolutely amazing. And that end section I was able to go to completely flat through most of, and win by quite a distance again by the time we got to the finish line. And finally we moved on to Lookout again, which went as well as last time, and I won it again, which was good. Which is probably a good point to leave it for the first look at this newly added Anniversary Edition Dodge Viper. I'm by no means, by the way, saying that my tune is better than that one. I'm sure with the right pair of hands that would be a lot faster, particularly on sprints. This would only really work in handling adventures. I'm kind of only saying that it fits my driving style better, as I'm not really skilled enough to control that kind of oversteer coming out of corners. I'm just not good enough at throttle controlling, at the moment at least, to sort that out. I potentially need to practice with some more cars that are like that to try and gradually improve with that sort of thing. But this tune, though, was... the handling tune was just so grippy that we were able to make up so much time in the corners that it didn't matter that it was slow on the straights. But yeah, potentially an adventure that's 2 sprints and a power circuit, this wouldn't work. Anyway, the car itself is a really cool addition with amazing unique customization and window stickers, which are always brilliant, which I still hope they add as a customization option at some point, even if it's the next game potentially, or in Motorsport that's coming next year. In S1 class, this thing is fast. That power tune was quick, but I couldn't drive it. I'm not used to S1 either, by the way, so anyway, my tune I was really impressed with, though, that I managed to get a car with a top speed of 150 to win so many races. Not necessarily against as hard opposition as the other one, so like I say, I'm not saying my tune's better, I'm just saying it suits me better, and we got better results with it. For the car, though, do go and get it if you haven't already, even if you're not planning to use it for the unique customization options. If nothing else, I think it's worth having. And the story mode, like I say, isn't too difficult to complete, apart from potentially the first chapter, but if you're not trying to 3-star it, it doesn't really matter. That, though, is going to be all for a very first look at the Dodge Viper Anniversary Edition here on Forza Horizon 5. So thank you very much for watching, and I will be back with the next video very soon.